Lobio is this sensorial experience, right? This sensual, the smell of the pickled cabbage, the smell of these fresh herbs, this beautiful palette of colors, all sort of put together in on one plate, eaten with a fork, and it's so delicious. You can use large beans or small beans. Personally, I think you should go to the grocery store and find the beans that are the largest and that are the most colorful and that you like the most. It's a difference of 50 cents or something. And so these are called orca beans for the obvious reason. I soaked my beans overnight with a pinch of salt. Gotta put a pinch of salt in it. And then I cooked them for about an hour, and they look like this now. The Georgian lobio is very much so a stew, and so you don't have to crush them all, but I'm releasing some starches, I'm breaking down the beans, and I'm gonna look for a stew thick, hold on to a spoon thickness. And I'm gonna add some water because this is gonna end up way too thick. And that's why you save back a little bit of the bean broth. So you get this to this mashed consistency. You want some whole beans and you want some saucy beans, and I'm gonna add in some water. You make this lobio, and then you just set it aside. And when you serve it, it's going to be room temperature. So, onions. The next ingredient that we're going to put in here are some onions. I have a pound of beans in here. They were dry. Now it weighs more than a pound, obviously, because they've hydrated. And the rule of thumb that I go by, and Georgians go by, and that is in this recipe that you're going to get, is that you basically have roughly a 1-to-1 correspondence of onions and beans. So a pound of beans, a pound of onions. I use a very specific style of cutting up onions because I cut up a lot of onions. People say, but you know, why I cry so much when I cut up onions, and I do too. I have very sensitive eyes. If you tear up when you're cutting one onion, it's because you're cutting it up too slow. And so I'm going to show you how to rapidly chop up an onion, and I'm going to make sort of diagonal cuts, radial cuts, all the way around. All together, and then I'm just gonna boom, 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 boom. So here's an onion, and I'm gonna put it in raw. Like now I'm not gonna saute it. So this is one of these things. But you kind of want the heat, and you kind of want the freshness of these onions. A good lobio should have a healthy hit of garlic to it. For a pound of beans, about a half of a head of garlic sounds good to me. And just gonna bang it. And what happens is now I can easily pop these papery skin, mashing it up a little bit, and then if I'm feeling really particular, I'll go through and I'll chop off what was the root of these cloves of garlic. I never cut my don't cut your fingers. And they call it the claw, and so just use your knuckles. So right now in this pot we have beans and raw onions, and while I'm thinking about it and remembering it, I'm gonna put a pinch of salt in it. I'm not gonna do what I was gonna do, which was I was just gonna throw the garlic in there, and that'd be great. Instead, I'm gonna do something which is my friend Tina Mushavanadze, who wrote the cookbook that I translated. She calls this the Georgian pesto. I have a mortar and pestle. Every Georgian kitchen has a mortar and pestle. I got some cilantro from the green market. I'm just gonna, and I don't know, let's say that there's twice as much chopped cilantro as there is garlic, so maybe 5 cloves of garlic and a big handful of cilantro. Eventually, I can do that. So it's just cilantro and garlic, and I'm just gonna toss it in there. Again, notice that I'm not cooking the garlic. That's not at all how the French or the Italians would do a bean soup. And so in this, we have a pound of beans that have been soaked overnight and then cooked until soft. And I've mashed them up, and I put in some onions. I put them in raw. Put in a few pinches of salt, and I put in this Georgian pesto, this garlic combined with cilantro and mashed up in my pestle. And so the recipe calls for leeks, and I said these are such beautiful scallions. I'm going to use scallions instead, and so I find them a little bit easier to work with than leeks. They don't get as much sand in them, and they're a little bit easier to handle. And so I'm going to cut these pretty thin. So I'm going to and I'll cut the whites and the greens. I'm going to put all in a whole thing. And stay in there again. Just made a mess. Again, raw. And now I'm looking at that. Look at this, Sean. Like it's a little too thick. It's like that's too stewy, but it's okay. I'll just add some liquid to it. And every Soviet person knows what adjika is. It's this red pepper paste, and it's very good, and I make it all the time. I actually make a green variation of it from the south of Georgia. I don't have any on hand, but that's okay. I have this is Aleppo pepper. Aleppo pepper is great. It's from Syria. I'm almost putting walnuts in here. I don't think that they bring a lot of flavor to the game. They do. They have a wonderful flavor. They also have a wonderful texture when cooked. People don't realize. Georgians cook walnuts all the time as an ingredient. One of the characteristic flavors of Georgian cuisine is called utsos khuneli, which we call blue fenugreek in the States. And it's funny that phrase, utsos khuneli, it means like foreign spice. So even though it's now considered to be the ne plus ultra of Georgian cooking, the name in Georgian literally means like somebody else's spice. In a pinch, leave it out. It doesn't matter. I mean, like this has so much flavor in it. Do you really think a teaspoon of another? Okay, but if you got it, put it in. I have it, so I'm gonna put it in. I'm gonna put, I don't know, that's a teaspoon? We'll put a teaspoon in there. Man, that smells so good. So one of those other things that is like quintessentially Georgian, it's marigold flowers. This is the Tagetes marigold. A lot of people think wrongly that it's the pot marigold. This is like what we call French marigold, and it's everywhere in Georgia. You can't but smile when you smell marigold. I think it's totally appropriate and correct to put a teaspoon. Lobio is a fascinating dish because it's peasant food. It's dried beans. They're very, very cheap. They're eminently storable. You can harvest them in the fall and dry them on your countertop, and then they'll keep for years. And so it's a very humble dish. And to match this humbleness, I'm gonna make some machadi. So Georgians cooking these all the time. They're called ketsi. I say it with a Russian accent, and the Georgians always correct me. They are fired clay vessels. They're fascinating. They're highly micaceous, and if this were new, maybe you can see it. It's really got lots of sparkles, and so there's a very specific clay that they use. The other thing that's great about them, and we're gonna utilize this in a couple seconds, is that they retain heat for about an hour and a half. And so you can cook in them, like I said, on the stovetop, in the oven, and you take the food out and you put it aside, and you come back an hour later, and your stew, your green beans, your lobio is still warm. I want to cook an incredibly simple Georgian bread. If you're in the countryside, there's always going to be what are called machadi, kind of like cornbread corn cakes, and they're super simple. So if we think of lobio as dried beans, they're turned into a stew. that are really shelf-stable, instant food for the poor. What goes along with a good lobio, and you have to eat this with your lobio, is machadi. These are really, really easy, but I really want to show you how to make them because there's a tactile element to them. There's a sort of like, how much water do you add? And it's like, well, it just depends. First off, I've got some very finely ground cornmeal, corn flour. I got it from the grocery store. I'm gonna make Sean and me, I think we're just gonna make 3 machadi. And so now think about this. Your machadi are gonna be about 2 ounces. An ounce is a piece of dough the size of a walnut. That's very, like a meatball. That's 1 ounce. I'm gonna put about 6 ounces of cornmeal in this. And the rule of thumb goes something like this. Equal amounts of water and cornmeal. I'm gonna put 4 ounces of water in here, so I'm gonna re-tare it. And now we're at 0. I'm gonna put 3 or 4 ounces. And if I need to add some more, I can add some more. I'm gonna put a big pinch of salt in here. Old-fashioned, old-school machadi don't use salt. I like salt in mine. Honey is quintessentially Georgian, but like I think every Georgian is gonna like roll their eyes at this, that I'm putting honey in the machadi. I'm gonna put a big pinch of baking soda in this as well. It'll lighten things up a little bit. It's crumbly, but not too crumbly. Actually, it's probably still a little too soft. And I'll get it to the texture. And I'm mixing this up. And remember, corn's a grain. Corn's just like flour. It's called corn flour. It's cornmeal. This is the sign. Is that when I poke it, my indentation stays. And so easy to work with. I'm gonna make 3 or 4 of these. And the classic shape of these is sort of slightly oblong, flattened football shape. And then I'm gonna fry them. And I'll show you what to look for. So this is the perfect consistency here. It's lively and elastic in my hands, but it holds its shape too. Since Sean is a vegan, I'm gonna cook these in olive oil. I've got some oil in my skillet, and you can tell it's ready for me to cook on because it's rippling. There's some ripples in there, and so I can try it out. Just a little piece. Perfect. And so the thing with machadi is that you've got to be really certain that they're thoroughly cooked, because what you don't want, what nobody wants, is a raw machadi. And so I'm gonna cook these, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes, maybe 5 minutes on a side. I'm gonna get them nice and brown. I'll show you that. And then I'm gonna cook for another couple minutes with the lid on so that they steam. Okay, so now we're cooking up these machadi, and I'll show you that they're getting a little bit brown here, which is good. Look at that. Oh, look at that. Oh, they're ready to be turned already. So the classic way to eat lobio is on a plate. There's a big communal plate, and people just take spoonfuls of lobio, and they eat it with one of the elements are these machadi, which are cooking here. The other is called gombosto in Georgian. It's pickled cabbage. Sean, smell this. I mean, it smells so good. So this is pickled cabbage. It is the classic accompaniment to lobio, and pickled peppers. Now, actually, these pickled peppers are from the grocery store. They're like, go to the pickle aisle and there'll be bottles and bottles of pickled peppers. Get the sweet kind. It's a very, very good product. Anybody who's been to Georgia and to the Georgian table knows that in the middle of the Georgian table are piles and piles of parsley, cilantro, mint, basil, green onions, you name it. And the last thing, Georgian cheese. People talk all the time about Georgian cheese. I've actually made a lot of cheese in Georgia with like old Georgian women. Like, I know what I'm talking about. It's queso fresco. That's it. I mean, like, it's just, it's that simple. I'm gonna put some great herbs. And that on a plate, we got some greens, some parsley, some cilantro, some celery. We have the pickled cabbage, fermented cabbage, and beets. We have some pickled peppers, sweet pickled peppers, and then in the middle, playing an important role, but certainly not the central role, not the only role. You have the bean soup, and you'll notice like maybe in Georgia it wouldn't even be hot. It would just be like room temperature. And it would be, so all of this, by the way, would be on various big platters in the middle of the table, and everybody would have a smaller plate, and everybody would just reach in and grab whatever they wanted, and they put together a plate. These came out, so these are going to be really good. The cornmeal is a little coarser than it needs to be. That explains all of this, but like it's still going to be really good. It's still going to be totally authentic. It's still going to be like identifiably Machadi. And there you go. That is the whole. The panorama, the big canvas of Lobio, and look at all those colors. You got the green, you got this beautiful purple, you got red and green pepper. I'm gonna make Sean watch me eat. I'm gonna make you watch me eat, because it's like a ritual, and you gotta like, right. That's how it goes, right? You break this up. Oh, where did I put my cheese? Oh, I keep forgetting to mention the beautiful white cheese that we have here, and ready. Film me eating. Oh my god, that's so good. No, a little bite of cheese. This is perfect cheese.